Another Atlantic hurricane season is underway. Yay. I'm Craig Cohen. Today on Houston Matters, what local government and nonprofits are doing to prepare for a season when a response from FEMA and other federal agencies may not be automatic.
Houston Matters with Craig Cohen is a production of Houston Public Media with support from Baylor College of Medicine.
Also this hour, you can't tackle life's big challenges if you let the little ones get you down. That's why each month Houston Matters sweats the small stuff. Send your Houstonian pet peeves now to talk@houstonmatters.org. Plus, how Houston area coaches handle challenging questions at press conferences after difficult games. We discuss with Believe in Astros podcast co-host Jeff Balke. We'll start with a news update from NPR and News 88.7. Stay with us. This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. Good morning. Coming up this hour, how Houston area coaches handle post-game press conferences. Also, your Houstonian pet peeves. But first, the Atlantic hurricane season is officially underway. In the wake of Hurricane Beryl, which came here last summer, and also Hurricanes Milton and Helene, which were costly and deadly elsewhere, we're all hoping 2025 is less impactful than 2024, when a record number of Harris County residents applied for FEMA aid to assist repairs and temporary housing costs. This year, though, that help from the federal government might not be there when we need it. This spring, President Trump and DHS Secretary Kristi Noem floated the idea of eliminating FEMA altogether and have since backtracked while saying they want states to bear the brunt of disaster assistance. The administration was slow to declare an official disaster after storms and tornadoes caused extensive damage recently in multiple states. Amid that uncertainty, Houston government and nonprofits are forging ahead, preparing for the potential of a tropical storm coming here this season. Joining us to discuss is Brian Mason, Director and Emergency Management Coordinator for the City of Houston's Office of Emergency Management, Ernest Lewis III, Vice President of Community Impact and Vitality at Baker Ripley, and Felix Kapoor, Co-Director of Rebuild and Organizing at West Street Recovery. Good morning to you all.
Good morning.
Brian, you came into this role shortly after Hurricane Beryl landed in Texas. What lessons did you take away from coordinating recovery efforts of local agencies last year?
Well, you know, when it comes to recovering from a hurricane or a big disaster, it really comes down to our partnerships and our relationships with all of our stakeholders, not only on the local level, but with the county, the state, Fed partners as well. So our real message to everybody is, yeah, we focus on hurricane season for preparedness, but our real request to the listeners and to the residents of Houston is please make sure we're prepared 365 days a year. Just don't focus just on hurricane season.
Ernest, Baker Ripley's historically played a large role in coordinating with government and other community partners to provide immediate and long-term disaster support. Are your preparations this year any different as you anticipate there may not be immediate support from FEMA and other federal agencies?
Yes, a good question. So for us, we've basically just completed a strategic plan for 3 years, and part of that was community resilience. So we did make an investment of hiring a director of community resilience to help us with the planning of stakeholders. How are you emerging some of those needs, but then also looking at how do you prepare, as Brian said, around 365 days a year, but then also, too, looking at what are some of the low-hanging fruit that we can utilize through partnerships, but then also looking at if there's going to be a funding gap, how can we encourage either philanthropic organizations or individuals to support and help some of that. Also, too, we're just encouraging communities to leverage some of the strengths that they have so that they can bounce back during disasters. And it is beyond floods or hurricanes. We had COVID. So we just have to be prepared for anything and just making sure that we have a plan and that it's agile enough to respond appropriately.
Felix, West Street Recovery actively works towards increasing resilience and preparedness, particularly in communities on the front line of the climate crisis. What is that looking like right now?
Yeah, thanks, Craig. Right now, in terms of preparing for the next hurricane season, we're setting up like hub houses strategically and working with community, not for community, as a way of really creating sort of route-based resilience within Northeast Houston. And for those who don't know, that's like Denver Harbor up to East Mount Houston 59 as our territory, along with like East Tex Jensen, which has been an area that's been historically neglected and consistently impacted by all of these storms. Not just the ones last year, but the ones all through history that have hit Houston. So that's what it's looking like right now. from our side. And also, part of resilience needs to also come from like government as well. And right now the city is getting a pot of about $300 million from HUD in response to two of the big storms last year, Beryl and Derecho. But zero of those dollars right now are going towards housing. Zero of those dollars are going towards drainage infrastructure. And, in our mind, we're trying to figure out how we can influence the city to actually change their mind, because we feel like that's completely disrespectful and not prudent to just completely avoid and let Houstonians that have been here for generations live with the disaster still.
Brian, I imagine that's not something you can comment on as in your purview, but I wonder if you can kind of explain how the city gauges the distinction between money that's set aside for something specific that has occurred in the past that recovery from, versus what is set aside or prepared for the next storm and its impact.
Yeah, for a lot of our things, and Director Blanchard, who's the Chief Recovery Officer, Resiliency Officer for the mayor, she has set up a series of work tables and round tables with a lot of the community partners. Both of these gentlemen are a part of it. We're really trying to solicit input from the community and the stakeholders. We try to use a lot of things that are data-driven. We use Social Vulnerability Index and a few other metrics to help us identify areas we should focus on, but we really try to get input from our community partners on where do we set up a resiliency hub? Where do we set up a pod or a point of distribution? Where do we set up a cooling center? Where do we set up a warming center? There's all these buzz terms that we use, but we usually try to focus on those underserved communities and the communities that need those services immediately, and once again with the input from our partners from the community.
And I know you can't comment on federal policies, but just given our current situation, reality, are there steps that you and other local officials can take right now to be able to do more direct support to residents affected by that next disaster?
Yeah, so we always say in the emergency management world that all incidents start and end local. So when something happens, we're the first responders that are out there. We're the first ones that start to transition with our NGO partners into those initial recovery efforts. So locally, it's once again our relationships with all of our individual community partners, with our agencies, making sure we have a sequence plan. We're coordinating together. As a matter of fact, we're doing an exercise tomorrow in our EOC with a lot of the city departments, a lot of our NGO partners, to get in there, walk through our hurricane timeline, walk through a storm, and figure out how do we make sure that our plans and are sequenced together to where we're serving the residents.
I guess doing that almost like drills is pretty critical.
Yes, sir.
In this work.
Correct.
Ernest, let's assume FEMA is slow to respond when a storm rolls through here.
Okay.
Seems a potentially reasonable assumption. Is there enough funding support from local organizations right now to take up that slack?
There is not. So part of it is that we have to continue to look at outside the box of how can we, with the resources we have, how can we respond to stabilize first? So usually when a storm comes, you are in respond mode, making sure folk are safe, distribution, as Brian said, with food, shelter. And then from there, then you have the recovery phase, which is case management. You're looking at their unmet needs. You're seeing how they can get back to work, or all of those things. What are those crucial needs for them to be stable? So for us, we're looking at how can we braid funding, but then also have scenario planning of saying what can we realistically do within the emergent needs of the community after a storm happens. So at Baker Ripley, we're not first responders, but we are long-term recovery responders. So for instance, we will help stabilize those families, and we have 4 community centers where we do partner with Red Cross and others to where we may provide some immediate services, but on the long term, we're helping how can you get that financial assistance that you need and to navigate with some of those resources to make your family whole. And that's one of the things that we're constantly looking at. So part of my department is strategy. So how are we strategizing as far as what was to be some of those gaps, or what are some of those funding opportunities that we can look into that we can then leverage?
Well, okay, so how is that strategy likely to be different this year and going forward? Let's take Harvey as the example. During Harvey, you all helped out to make sure that there was some short-term housing for folks that were supplanted by flooding. And then there was this question of, okay, now do these folks, do they try and get short-term loans to help them rebuild? Are they better off seeking out FEMA grants or not, and you help to navigate that. Some of those questions, the answers are likely to be different than they were then.
So some of those are still in the air, right? Yeah. So for instance, if you're looking at home repair or loans, so you're looking at the Small Business Administration, right? So looking at those offices and saying, okay, what are some of the resources we can offer? As it relates to other dollars, there's other pots of money outside of FEMA that we're looking at as far as resilience. So they have a lot of resilience money. Department of Defense have some dollars as well that we have to think outside the box. And part of it is with the preparedness piece to help stabilize. But we will have to rely on the community because we always hear Houston strong during times of disaster. So really depending on the community for those unrestricted dollars where we can put the need, where we can address the most need, it's going to be really important. But not to sugarcoat it, it's going to be a very hard time because there's going to be a huge gap just with USDA and SNAP that we heard about. Folk are still figuring out and very anxious about how I'm going to cover my food needs and my basic needs. So this is only going to amplify it. So we definitely would have to look at, okay, what could we still realistically do? But then also we're going to have to call on other regional partners and even national partners to kind of help lighten the load. And that's just the reality of the matter.
Felix, what are you hearing from Houstonians who have been impacted by past storms? What concerns do they have heading into this hurricane season?
Right now, as co-director of our home repair program, I'm hearing I need my roof changed. It's been damaged since Harvey. My floors are still messed up because of floodwaters or other damage from other storms, including like Uri. I personally hear a lot of cases of people that still have strong unmet needs on the home repair side, and really that's really one of the biggest unmet needs from Beryl and Derecho, according to a survey last year. Like I think it was about 50% of the need was about home repair, and once again, zero of these CDBG community disaster block grant disaster recovery funds are actually going towards home repair. The city's going to try to ask instead for that money to get an exception from HUD to use that money to like replace police vehicles, for example. So that's like a lot of the need that I hear personally and that my team hears. And also we as a collective, and this is our community group here, the Northeast Action Collective, we are trying our best to prepare our hub houses with immediate disaster supplies that can be distributed in the event of a storm, and really getting the message out of preparedness through like community meetings that we have through conversations we have with homeowners to make sure they're prepared. And everyone needs an individual preparedness plan because, as we're consistently saying, not every disaster comes from the Gulf right now,
Right.
So yeah.
Brian, just what's your overarching message to any Houstonian, whether they've suffered storm damage from past storms, or whether they're looking ahead, they're at this point this season and beginning this steady weekly staring at the Gulf and whatever storms may be bubbling up, and looking at tracks and cones of uncertainty and whatever the rest of it is. What's your big message to Houstonians about all of this?
I think the big thing is, please make sure you're prepared, have a plan, have a kit. You can go to houstonoem.org, and we have a long list of what items should be in your kit, what items go into having a good plan. Please stay informed. You can text Alert Houston to 888-777 or Alert Houston to 888-777, and you can enroll in our Alert Houston notification system, to where if there is a incident going on, we can send mass messaging to folks. Social media is a great place to stay informed. If for some reason we do have a storm that comes, please listen to your elected officials. If we get to a point where an evacuation does need to happen, hopefully it doesn't, but if it does, we have to sequence that with people on the island versus people in the coastal communities versus people as we get further inland. So Just once again, please have a plan, have a kit, stay informed, and listen to local elected officials.
Can I add one more thing to that list?
Sure.
Maybe don't freak out.
Yeah, that's that's important as well. We say in the emergency management world, we want to run from the rising seawater or storm surge, and we want to hide from the wind. So if you're down on the coast and if we have a large storm coming and we have a 10, 12, 15-foot storm surge, that is a true life safety situation for the people down there. So we want to make sure they get to a safe location. If you live in Conroe or Katy, you're going to probably have some wind damage and maybe some power challenges, but you're not in near as of a life safety situation as the people down on the coast.
Brian Mason is the Director and Emergency Management Coordinator for the City of Houston's Office of Emergency Management. Ernest Lewis III is Vice President of Community Impact and Vitality at Baker Ripley. Felix Kapoor is Co-Director of Rebuild and Organizing at West Street Recovery. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And up next, it's time to sweat the small stuff in another round of Houstonian Pet Peeves. Get your gripe on. Call or text us at 713-440-8870 or email talk@houstonmatters.org. Join in the fun. It'll be cathartic, I promise. And stay with us as Houston Matters continues. This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. On the first Monday of each month, we set aside time on this program to sweat the small stuff. It's a conversation we call Houstonian Pet Peeves, and we do it because you can't tackle life's big challenges when the little ones get in the way. I am talking about those petty annoyances, those frustrations, those things that make your life here in Houston just a little less than it could be. You can email your pet peeve now to talk@houstonmatters.org. You can call or text us at 713-440-8870. Remember the ground rules: no swearing, no defaming. Otherwise, we encourage you to let loose. And as we peruse your peeves, we seek reaction from champion complainers. Houston Chronicle op-ed editor Lisa Gray and Craig Lavati, public relations specialist at Public Content. Lisa, Craig, good morning.
Morning.
Once again, to join our group moan session, call or text 713-440-8870. If you want me to read your peeve on the air, email it to talk@houstonmatters.org. Well, you heard me just talking about another hurricane season started. We're in June. Welcome to the soupy, hot, unpleasant mess that is summertime in Houston.
Yeah.
I can't help but imagine you've got a peeve or two related to that.
I do. We are not yet in what I think of as like high summer, that period when it's just too hot to go outside without really feeling like you're endangering your life. But already I'm dreading it. I'm dreading the hurricanes. I'm dreading the stuff that happens. Even though, early this morning it's breezy, it's beautiful. I could have been appreciating this morning, but no, I've got weather PTSD.
And we just helped add to it just now, didn't we?
Yes.
You're welcome.
I need to be prepared. Oh my
It's
God.
a good public service and also frustrating, and I get it.
Yeah,
Craig?
it's that season where people start reacquainting themselves with Home Depot and Lowe's. They're just like, where are all the trash bags at? Where's the plywood? Where's where are all these like essential items that we need that we should have been buying, over the spring and the winter?
I mean, but there's still a certain smugness about getting ready before it happens. It feels good.
I already bought a generator. Yeah,
Good for you.
You know how to run it.
exactly.
All right, let's dive right into some peeps because we've got a bunch here already from listeners. Sandra writes, during the construction taking place at Houston's Intercontinental Airport, the arrangement for rideshare app users upon arriving has been unworthy of the prestige of the fourth largest city in the U.S.
Oh.
Imagine you are a domestic traveler, she writes. You arrive in, say, Terminal A. You are directed to make your way to Terminal C, navigate to the correct exit, and from there to a garage with no AC, no heat, or wait for it, cell signal. Congrats. You have found the general area. Now you have to find the area for your rideshare app. If you use Uber and you find where the Ubers are, now good luck in finding the correct Uber zone, as it can be zone A, B, C, etc. And the signage, don't get me started on that. Now, imagine you are an international traveler. Now, imagine you are a sick international traveler who came to Houston for its world-renowned medical center. Woo, that's from Sandra. Your
That
thoughts?
is a world-class complaint. I am so
It's
impressed.
like that first level of a video game where you're trying to feel yourself out. And you're like, all right, how do I get out of this first room? What do I do? Like, like, these critical thinking skills just to get out of the parking garage.
It helps if you can, in your mind, hear the Super Mario World theme.
That's what I do most of the time. Yeah.
Dee, 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 dee,
Yeah.
dee, 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 and just
And then when
walking
it
through the
gets
terminal.
like, in like King Koopa's like castle where it starts to get a little bit more crazy, that's how you are when you're in the parking garage.
Yeah, just don't jump on any dinosaurs while
yeah.
you're there. Yeah.
Less fire.
There are no Yoshis waiting to take you anywhere. Teresa's in Spring. She writes, it's horrible when drivers pass on the right. Whatever happened to driver's ed that taught that the right lane is a slow lane and don't pass on the right? It's especially bad when I'm indicating that I want to get into the right lane, perhaps to exit, but drivers won't let me get into the right lane. At that time, I'm wondering if my rear turn indicator is working. Then they pass me on the right and go into my lane. Not every car has alarms to warn of cars approaching on the left and right, and there is a blind spot. And she says, thank you for letting me vent.
I know traffic is bad everywhere, but in Houston, we do this thing where if somebody does try to make a lane change in front of us, we actively speed up. I don't get that. Like, I don't know if that's I've been to San Antonio, I've been to Dallas, Austin, all these places recently. In Houston, we just do it really well.
So not defensive driving, but offensive.
Offensive.
The offensive driving.
I have generally seen it more in big cities that have lots of consistent traffic snarls, because what it tends to indicate is when the lane does open up, when there is space, people feel this need to, I got to make up for lost time. I've got it. This is now my lane. This is my space. There's a certain degree of, that sort of aggressiveness that was there because they held back during all of that
I will say
bumper to
that
bumper.
you guys are probably familiar with the 59 to 610 towards the Galleria, how it goes down to one lane.
Sure.
I'm not going to lie. I defend my space there like I am defending like Normandy. Like I am like, I don't know what I am. Like it's a military operation. Like I do not let people jump in front of me at the very end. I do not. I mean, I will tailgate the car in front of me so people cannot, skip the line all the way over there.
I will say, I
delight in it.
I do on occasion take the 59 exit to the West Park Tollway. And that's another spot where you can see people really backing up to get onto the tollway because it's a single lane and you've had a lot of people merging in a short period of time. Consistently, not every time, but most of the time, people are pretty kind about letting you in because they realize there are folks who have been playing Frogger and have been going 4 or 5 lanes over from the left just to get over there.
But
and it's hard to get over to the right because people are passing you on the right.
Well, there's that.
But there's like the thing is I know now to like get into the far right lane to jump in line, to get in line.
Right.
But there's people who at the very end, like right when it cuts off, they're just like, nope, sorry, I'm just gonna. This is my driving hack.
Yeah. Robert's in the Houston Heights. He says, I've had the same cell phone number since 1998, and I have not had school-age kids during that time. For some reason, I get several text messages a week from Aldine and Alief school districts. I've lived in neither district, posting general school information or occasionally mentioning that someone missed class.
Oh.
Since these messages don't come from a regular cell phone number, it comes from a 6-digit number, I can't block it or respond to the text. Since many of the messages are in Spanish, this does give me an opportunity to practice my rudimentary Spanish. So I was already finding the silver lining in it by the end of his piece.
It's like a Duolingo thing where you just,
Right. Some kid did not want to put their parents' real number down.
That's exactly what happened.
There's intrigue here.
I used to get phone calls about somebody being truant. And I'd be like, I don't know. And finally, I was just like, keep them. If they come back to school, just keep them.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. We're in the midst of another round of Houstonian Pet Peeves. It's your chance to sweat the small stuff and vent at 713-440-8870 or talk at houstonmatters.org. All right, let's go to Diane in Tomball. Diane, what's your Houstonian pet peeve?
Mine is to see street lights along the roads that stay on 24/7. They're supposed to go off when it gets light out, but some of them don't. And I call TxDOT to report them, and sometimes it works and they get them turned off, and sometimes it doesn't. It's just aggravating to see electricity wasted.
All right, thank you for the call and for the peeve. Let's talk about it.
It seems like that ought to be super easy and automatic.
You know what would be great is if they took the electricity saved by turning the lights off during daylight and turned them on a little more brightly at night.
Oh,
we could,
okay.
No,
The
you
problem is
disagree.
some of the headlights are too bright. It's not
Well.
that the
Well, we're getting
streetlights
old.
No, it's that the headlights are too bright, Craig. I swear.
It couldn't
These
possibly
aftermarket
be.
ones, no. You'll notice. Start looking. Some of them
No,
are
no,
way
we've
too
talked
bright.
about it before, and I literally, I
Your eyes cannot go
I
back and forth.
chalked it up to just being old. Like I was like, I'm just getting too old for this now.
No,
It's time
young
for me not
people
to drive
can't
at
see
night.
either.
Yeah.
We're all blind.
Thomas is in Montgomery County. Thomas, what's your Houstonian pet peeve?
Well, I'm not criticizing KUHF, but every once in a while, there was a you hear a female being interviewed, and they're talking about serious stuff, and these once in a while these females break into laughter about stuff that's not funny. There was a girl on Thursday being interviewed about housing. So she had something to do with housing, and she thought it was very funny that a Houstonian resident lost their housing voucher because of some paperwork snafu. She was giggling. You can hear it in her voice.
All right. We'll talk about it. So first of all, I don't know that this is necessarily having anything to do with gender. I think what this has to do with is sometimes you'll have guests. I've come across this, somebody who maybe is not used to being on the radio. They're a little nervous, and just as people have nervous tics like they say or or a variety of other things that really frustrate people, like, that's a really good question, and we've talked about that before. Another one is sometimes nervous laughter, and I wonder if that's what he caught.
That could be. I do think women are more likely to laugh when there's an awkward silence just because it's polite.
It's like a
for a woman
disarming
to do it. It shows
Really?
we're connected, you and I, and even if it's a serious subject sometimes. If you listen in your personal conversations, you'll hear it. But when you hear it on the radio or on TV, it's jarring.
Why don't we test that out right now?
Okay. Say something dumb, Craig. Or smart. See, there I
There
go.
it is. There it is.
It's a disarming mechanism. It's to sort of lighten the mood, but not completely. You're not making light of the situation.
Bob in Galveston says, I understand that newspapers don't get enough advertising income anymore to have as many features as they used to include, but a big part of the enjoyment of baseball is looking at box scores and stats. I once saw an infinity sign used to report the ERA of some poor reliever who gave up a grand slam on his one and only pitch on opening day. Or a journeyman who hits 4 home runs on opening day and is now on pace to hit 648 homers for the season. I don't even read the electronic edition until noon, but over the past few years, the Houston Chronicle has stopped reporting box scores and stats. Even Astros home games are often listed as late with nothing reported. With all the data online, it certainly seems easier than ever for the Chronicle to report the stats and scores. They have an excellent sports writer, Kirk Bowles, writing almost daily columns about the University of Texas. Why not let him report on Major League Baseball? Well, since you work for the Houston Chronicle,
right.
Any thoughts, Lisa?
I am so not part of the sports section, but I can tell you what I think is going on. There are so many sources for this sort of thing right now that it doesn't necessarily make sense for the Chronicle to spend time and money putting it
box
out
score,
there.
yeah.
It's the same thing like our business readers. By the time you see a stock price in the printed newspaper, it's out of date. You go online for it.
We tend also not to think about this much anymore because we think so much of this digital world. But in the print world, and there is still a print world, column inches cost money, don't they?
Yeah.
Everything
the paper is expensive.
It's a question of what is the biggest bang for the buck, inch by inch, right?
Right.
And with online stats, like as a fellow baseball nerd, like we are in just a great time right now where I have 7 different apps that I can look at for a box score while I'm at the game. So I just see where he's coming from because I used to.
If it's part of your morning habit, I get missing it.
Yeah, especially with late games too.
Yeah.
We are fielding your Houstonian pet peeves. Call or text 713-440-8870. Email talk@houstonmatters.org. More of our group moan session and more from guests Lisa Gray and Craig Lavati is ahead as Houston Matters continues.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once? I am one of those melodramatic fools, neurotic to the bone, no doubt.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen, and we're in the middle of another round of Houstonian Pet Peeves with Lisa Gray, Craig Lavati, and you at 713-440-8870 or talk at houstonmatters.org. Remember, those ground rules: don't defame anyone, no name calling, no swearing. Otherwise, bring it. Jed's on the southwest side. Jed, what's your Houstonian pet peeve?
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, Jed.
No, it's Ted.
Oh, Ted, I apologize. What's your
Not a problem.
What's your pet peeve other than hosts that mispronounce your name?
I mean, Jed's cool too.
Not a problem. Not a problem. No, my pet peeve is I drive a semi truck here in Houston. I deliver material for a certain company, and there's people that drive on the road that will come up in front of me, and then they will step on the brakes.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people, those people think that, to me, I feel that they feel entitled to be on that left lane, and unless that the speed limit is not it's under restriction, we do not drive on the left lane. That left lane is for everybody, you know, and a lot of people do that. They tend to come up and they'll just slam on the brakes. You know, and that's dangerous for me, for them, and everybody else.
All right, Ted, thanks for the call and for sharing that.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about how much a semi-truck weighs.
Yeah.
If you realize they can't stop as fast as a little car can,
And
you realize how scary this is.
yes, and if you find yourself, God forbid, in an accident with a semi,
Right.
the semi's going to win.
Yes, every time.
Every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Vernon is in Texas City. Vernon, what's on your mind?
Hi, I want to complain about these Houston drivers that have those spoked hubcaps that stick out 2 or 3 feet from the wheel. I mean, they're so dangerous to pedestrian and bike riders, and I really wish they were illegal. Okay?
I don't know if in Houston you're ever going to be able to outlaw swangas. I just
Right.
think that's just something that we're going to have to just collectively deal with.
Because it's a Houston thing. It's
I
part of the
really
culture.
think so. I don't
Yeah.
agree with them. We're not going
Okay.
to, I mean,
Right,
we can
right,
put some
right.
on Mike Tacoma if you want. But I think it's just something that we're just going to have to deal with.
I would say
It's
love
a cultural
them.
thing.
I love them on display somewhere.
Yes.
You know, I love the opportunity to be able to take a look at them. It's just when, you're right alongside, you're starting to feel like your lane's being encroached on a little
Like
bit.
what's that movie with the chariot race? Like you feel like you're about to just lose your tire. Yeah. Ben-Hur. Yeah.
Yeah. Mike's in the Galleria neighborhood. Mike, what's your Houstonian pet peeve?
I am the markings, the direction markings on our highways around town are just terrible. I mean, the ones in the lanes that tell you, which lane you get to go, 59 South or whatever, and then even the signage above. It's just. And I'm a native Houstonian, and I kind of know where I'm going. But if I didn't, I was just in Atlanta, and it was so easy to drive there because the markings are so definitive where to go for what. But here, they're just awful.
All right. Thanks for the call. Let's talk
I
about
wonder if that leads to some of our backed up traffic at intersections.
Oh, well, without question. I'm
Problem.
sure
Or
that
merges. Yeah.
that comes up. And also in some cases it's just that the signs have faded a little bit.
Right.
And be great if they could get replaced a little bit faster.
Speaking of like the stuff on the lanes, like on the roads, I'm not going to bring up street artists
Okay,
like decorating
okay.
those. But sometimes it's funny when you see like 3 different lines. Like
Yeah.
they've been redoing them over the years. You're just like, the far left or the far right? Which one is the
Well,
which one do we
or if
stick-
you're in the midst of a phase of a construction project,
Exactly.
because you're going to see that
Right.
striping all over the place.
Talk
that's
about
true.
going to Louisiana. It's the same way.
Yeah. John writes, escalator riders at sports venues, shopping malls, office buildings. If you are unfamiliar with your surroundings and must look around to determine your next direction, do not stop when you first step off the escalator. There are riders directly behind you.
Was this person at the Astros game yesterday?
Was that you?
No. Well, speaking of that, we went to yesterday at Dyken Park. I can't believe I said it. Dyken Park. It was we went for Princess Day.
Princess Day.
And I have never seen a more aimless crowd in my life. I don't know if it was just because there's just extra humanity there. It was more kids, but yeah, people
dresses.
Yeah, more floofy dresses. I mean, I was dressed as Belle. There was so much just strangeness at the park, especially on the escalators. I agree. People on escalators are just that's a different breed? I don't get it. Like it's like they're amused by the fact that the stairs move and that it's just people were throwing elbows in the crowd. I don't know what
the princesses.
I don't
were
know,
throwing
not the
elbows?
princesses.
Okay.
No, like there was a few princes that were walking around,
all right.
but it's just a very odd. We literally now, I think, in Houstonians, we walk around in public the same way we drive. Like there's no bearing at all for anybody. We'll stop in the middle of the concourse and just look around, just take it all in. Main character syndrome, like curating our own experience. But no, it's stunning. Yeah, but escalators are not my favorite.
It could also be looking down at a phone in the middle of all of that.
Well, escalators are bad, but also too, I've noticed that elevators are getting worse too. Like we don't have elevator etiquette either.
And yet, we are one of those communities where routinely people will talk about that you can expect a conversation to begin in an elevator.
Yes.
And that is something that folks from other parts of the country are not comfortable with.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like I am the king of what floor do you need? I'll push the button for you. I will be the elevator tender. I'm fine with that. But then there's people who will just jump off the elevator immediately and run into you.
Yeah.
Oh.
I've done that. I'll admit it.
Yeah. I guess we can admit it, yeah.
You know what's fun though is step on an elevator and the strange discomfort of 4 or 5 people all on an elevator and they're all staring straight ahead. Just in the middle of the ride, just suddenly turn around.
Yeah, just
stand the other way. Oh, that really freaks people out.
We were at the Crockett Hotel in San Antonio not too long ago, and it's like a historic hotel, tiny elevators. So it's like 3 people, 2 kids, 2 adults. That's it. But then you kind of like look at it, you have to eyeball and be like, no, I'm good. I'll take the next one. There's always invariably when it's super packed, there's one person that's just like, I'm going to jump in. And it's like, you can wait 30 more seconds.
I want to
elevator etiquette.
Go through a few peeves that came in after we wrapped last month. Annette's annoyed by people running red lights and worse at high speeds and overall bad driving that has led to high fatality rates and skyrocketing insurance rates. She writes, all while our state government prioritizes school vouchers. Well, I don't know what one has to do with the other, but very well. Mm-hmm. Some word usage and grammar peeves.
Oh.
Sarah writes, here's what I find intolerable: the grammatically incorrect I could care less. The phrase for accurate meaning is I could not care less, meaning there is nothing I care about less than this issue. By using the incorrect common nomenclature, people are saying that they actually do care about the issue. Ugh. And Nancy in Conroe is frustrated by use of the word less when fewer is the correct and more sensible choice, as in many saying less people instead of fewer people. It seems this has become common usage, like it or not. Sarah and Nancy, I could care fewer.
Can we
Craig, you saved that all month.
Can we please retire those 2 peeves in the rafters here in the studio?
We'll need to have some sort
like
of
with 2 banners,
anthem and ceremony.
Like we'll bring in everybody. Like we need to retire those 2 peeves. It's just going to happen.
I'd rather retire some traffic peeves, honestly.
too,
We'll do that
too.
first. We need a hall of fame for peeves. We'll work on it. Last month, we discussed how many Houstonians remain frustrated by long wait times when trains are stopped along railroad tracks at intersections with area roads. Bill was, as it turns out, waiting on a train crossing at Shepherd while listening to our last round of Houstonian Pet Peeves. The train, he says, was stopped on the tracks for a long time. We waited 20 minutes, and the majority of drivers were turning around, taking alternate routes, and we did also. There should be a cost, Bill says, to the railroad company for stopping traffic this long.
Yes.
Do you want all that hazardous material on the roads with us? Or would you rather it be on the train?
It's not all hazardous material.
That's true.
And there are things that can be done. The Chronicle, my team, the opinion team, just won a Pulitzer for a series on this stuff. There are things that can be done. They are big, systemic things that are expensive, which leads to higher taxes,
maybe the
which
solution,
people also hate.
Maybe the solution is that all of those train cars have like advertising on them, so we can monetize this. So if you're going to be stuck at a train, you can be looking at something like entertaining or pleasurable, or a
the
new
graffiti
show.
Doesn't do it for you.
A new show or better graffiti. I don't know,
or maybe those gas station weather.
Exactly, those
reports.
are horrible.
Oh, please.
We received these texts. Molly from the North Side writes, my pet peeve is a law firm who has so many billboards on the Gulf Freeway, and then they have one that says, don't drive distracted. They are the distraction.
Don't mention their name. Don't give them free publicity.
Another Houstonian wrote, my big pet peeve is the growing number of people putting their pet into the shopping cart at stores. That is disgusting and so unhygienic. People put food in there, fruits, veggies, and whatnot. That means someone is going to be eating a salad with doggy behind almond flavor.
Oh,
it's a tiny dog.
Running water over fruits and veggies is not going to wash animal germs and grime away. Ew!
If it's a tiny elderly dog, it's fine.
UEWW! Exclamation point! Catherine,
As long as it's a tiny elderly
because
puppy.
those have no germs, Craig.
I used to do that when I had my elderly guy. Sometimes, like during COVID, like if I couldn't leave him in the car, so like he's 1,000 years old. I gotta bring him in. Yeah, I agree.
Let's find out what other things are going to upset you because you've done it. Catherine's Houstonian pet peeve involves parking at the grocery store. She writes, folks need to learn to keep their cars inside the lines and not take up 2 spaces or park askew so we all can get a good parking spot. I appreciate anybody who properly works in the word askew so I can say askew on the air. I appreciate that one very much. David reached out a couple of weeks ago to talk at HoustonMatters.org to share this peeve. He writes, new neighborhoods have much smaller yards, but developers put 3 live oaks in a triangle about 10 to 15 feet apart. It won't be a problem for a few decades. Then it will cost many thousands of dollars to maintain or cut down. Perhaps a magnolia, water oak, or 3 crepe myrtles would be preferable. Developers, all caps now, and 3 exclamation points, please stop it.
Oh.
Okay.
He hates trees.
Well,
Got
no,
it.
I think he just wants one live oak. If it's going to get big.
Yeah.
Yeah. Properly spacing them
And
is important.
hurricane season, it'll fall over.
Not a live oak.
Oh, no, that's right.
They're tough.
Oh, those are
They're
strong.
low.
As always, I hope you found this cathartic, whether you shared a peeve with us or not. If there's something on your mind that simply cannot wait until the next time we do this, email it to us now at talk@houstonmatters.org. Craig Lavati, Lisa Gray, thank you both very much.
Thank you, Craig.
And still to come, how Houston area coaches handle post-game press conferences. Stay with us as Houston Matters continues. The post-game press conference. Some coaches handle it well, and others, well.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me?
They are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook.
Former NFL coaches Jim Mora and Dennis Green in famous post-game rants. Now, this next bit of audio, by comparison, is going to sound a lot more tame. It's what Dallas Stars coach Pete DeBoer said Thursday night after his team was eliminated from the NHL Western Conference Finals. Just 7 minutes into Game 5, while down 2-0, the coach benched the club's starting goaltender, Jake Ottinger.
I didn't take that lightly, and I didn't blame it all on Jake, but the reality is if you go back to last year's playoffs, he's lost 6 to 7 games to Edmonton, and we gave up 2 shots on 2 goals in an elimination game. So, it was partly to spark our team and wake them up, and partly, knowing that, status quo had not been working.
Dallas Stars coach Pete DeBoer there. His tone was calm. There seemed to be logic in what he was saying, but he did appear to be laying a lot of blame for the Stars series loss on Ottinger, even though the team in front of the goalie had not only played poor defense, but scored only 2 goals in the 3 previous games combined. DeBoer's comments were not received well by many fans and members of the Dallas sports media. Some argued DeBoer panicked by making the switch. Others didn't like him waiting until Ottinger started to skate back to his crease following a timeout to make the move. Some defended it as a necessary wake-up call to the rest of the team. When DeBoer spoke again to media Saturday, he admitted he had not yet spoken about the move with his star goalie. Ottinger said of being pulled, "It sucks, it's embarrassing," and then said, "The way I'm looking at it is how can I get better from that?" Whether there's a conversation to be had between player and coach, or whether this will lead to a strained relationship in the future, will play out when that club returns next season. Meantime, maybe there are lessons to be learned for Houston area coaches in dealing with players and the media. Let's discuss now with Believe in Astros podcast co-host Jeff Balke, who has been through his share of post-game press conferences. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, good morning, Craig.
First of all, any initial thoughts about how DeBoer handled that particular situation?
I didn't find it to be really that weird. I mean, the truth of the matter is I honestly, I don't know that much about hockey or what the decision making was behind that, but he didn't seem like he was throwing anybody under the bus. It just seemed like it was a question he had to answer because it was an action that he took on the ice. But I'm not sure what else he was going to say other than, it sounds like he basically told the truth and people don't like it.
How generally do each of Houston's major teams' coaches tend to handle post-game press conferences and challenging questions from the media? Anybody stand out as particularly good at it?
Well, they're all quite different from one another. I mean, Ime Udoka is the sort of the strong silent type. He doesn't say a lot. He's very open with his answers and candid, but he's not exactly a guy that's effusive in praise or in criticism. He's a pretty measured guy and pretty monotone. D'Amico Ryans is a guy that's always going to defend his players. He's not going to go public against anybody, really. He's definitely a player's coach. I mean, he's very close to having been a player himself, so not too surprising. And Joe Espada, I think he's kind of he's measured. He's in between. He's not like many baseball managers. He's not too high. He's not too low. He tends to keep things on a pretty even keel. It's a little different from, say, like Dusty Baker, who was here before, who kind of might say anything in a press conference. Most of the guys that are now at the helm for all the Houston professional teams, they're pretty calm, pretty measured, and tend to be pretty straightforward.
Who among them are most often facing the toughest questions from the press and the public?
Probably at the moment, it's got to be Joe Espada, just simply because the Astros are going through so much, turnover and sort of tumult, and and particularly right now because of the injury to Yordan Alvarez and the fact that he was gone for a month and everybody said he was going to come back, and all of a sudden he's got a broken hand. I think he's the one that probably comes under the toughest spotlight, especially because of the way the Astros handle the general dissemination of information, particularly when it comes to injuries. They're a very tight-lipped bunch. They don't make their trainers available to answer questions. And so they're a little bit tougher, I think, to penetrate from the outside. And so I think he's probably the guy that is in the most difficult position and therefore gives maybe the most cagey answers.
One of the things that stands out, at least so far, about the whole situation with DeBoer and Ottinger in Dallas is that apparently the two of them haven't spoken to one another since this game. When coaches make moves, they know will be second-guessed by the media and the public. Do they typically talk to the players affected before they make those comments publicly, or is there just not time?
There's usually not time. I mean, the amount of time to pull an individual player aside in the 10 minutes or so between the end of a game and the beginning of a coach's press conference, there's just not a practical way to do that. Not to mention the fact that I think just simply from a personnel standpoint, what are you going to do? Walk into the locker room after a tough loss, immediately grab your guy, pull him into the office and talk to him? It's just not a good look for them. I think those are the types of conversations, especially when you're talking a season-ending one, those are the types of conversations that are best held until the sting of the loss wears off. And I think it seems like he handled it the right way. I'm sure these are professionals. I'm sure they will get around to a time to make that discussion and make that adjustment. But I think for most coaches, they want to give a little bit of time and space both to themselves and to their players to sort of reflect on what exactly happened. I mean, in the heat of the moment, these are all adults we're talking about. They need a moment to calm down and sort of collect their thoughts.
Does that suggest to you that those coaches who are a bit more tight-lipped are probably the ones who negotiate those situations a bit better?
Well, I think it depends on what they're tight-lipped about. I think it depends on whether it's an organizational thing or whether it's just a coach thing. I think Ime Udoka is probably more him. He's very candid about things that happen in games, but he's a guy that you can tell he measures his answers pretty carefully. He's not someone that talks too much off the cuff, and he's someone who's he's a fierce defender of his players, but he's also very honest about the position that they're in, both on and off the floor. When you look at and Espada is he's a guy that you can just tell really wants to protect his players, but there's also a lot going on within that organization in terms of how they handle things. I think D'Amico Ryans is just a pretty straight up honest guy, but he also it's under Nick Caserio. They come from the Patriot school of not talking about much of anything. So I think there's a difference between sort of what the coach's personality is and what sort of the organizational protocols are.
Jeff Balke writes for the Houston Press and co-hosts the Believe in Astros podcast. Jeff, thank you very much.
Thank you, Craig.
And that'll do it for today's show. The Houston Matters team includes Michael Haggerty, Joshua Zinn, Brenda Valdivia, Mincho Jacob, and Laura Walker. Jared Carroll's our technical director. On tomorrow's show, we'll recap the Texas legislative session wrapping up today. Also, Michael Haggerty takes us to the first ever exponential conference and expo for the robotics and autonomy industries. It was held last month at the GRB. Joshua Zinn talks with author Brian Burrow about his new book detailing the history of legendary gunfighters from the Wild West and the role Texas played in their stories. And Mincho Jacob tells us about an exhibit at the Moody Center called Figurative Histories: Black Representation in Texas Art. I'm Craig Cohen. Join us tomorrow for those and other Houston Matters.